Hello and a very warm welcome to the third edition of the India Today Tourism Awards and Summit. Well, we are going through an unprecedented time. Economy is in a really bad shape. Sectors are grappling for survival. Tourism is one of the worst affected, and of course, it's one of the key employment generating sectors in the country. Through this summit, we have tried to understand how this sector will shape up to gear for the post-pandemic world. We've also picked the best states for you to plan your travel ahead. We would of course like to thank Gujarat Tourism, Odisha Tourism, Meghalaya Tourism, Tamil Nadu Tourism and Government of Uttar Pradesh as our associate sponsors. And now I would like to invite Mr. Raj Chengappa, Group Editorial Director, Publishing, India Today Group, to please open the summit.
Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa, and on behalf of India Today magazine, I'm delighted to welcome you to this virtual tourism summit and award presentation for 2020. We are all aware of the human, social and economic toll that the corona pandemic has taken and is taking of us. Our basic freedoms have been severely curtailed for months now. Travel, especially spontaneous travel, is one that we miss the most. Naturally, the effect of this ongoing crisis has been devastating for the tourism industry in India. But after months of darkness, I'm happy to report that we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. While there are plenty of negatives, what the crisis has done is to get key stakeholders to rethink and strategize on how to build a resilient tourism industry for a sustainable future. That is the reason why India Today is holding this tourism summit. With the macro challenges facing tourism, particularly travel abroad persisting, boosting domestic or even local tourism is the key. Perhaps in this pandemic cloud, this is a silver lining for Discover India, especially to push the vocal for local sentiment that has gained traction. Weekend getaways have already become a bright spot in our lives. Apart from exploring our own backyard, this crisis has brought into sharp focus the unregulated development of tourism in the country. Swachh Bharat, or a Clean India, has become even more relevant now. We must double our efforts to provide adequate sanitation and a sanitized environment for our favorite vacation spots. There is an urgent need for what is known as responsible tourism that puts conservation and sustainability on top of our priorities while developing our best getaways. Equally, given the sensory deprivation of these many months of restricted movement, people are likely to invest more thought, planning, care, and perhaps money in curating the precious opportunities they do have for travel with their families and friends. Following the rationed outings, travel and tourism will now focus increasingly on narratives of experiences rather than just destinations. Having said that, it's imperative to keep the big picture and the long-term perspective in mind. There is every reason to hope that someday, fairly soon, we will emerge from this crisis and people will want to experience the wide world and the glorious experiences that our country has to offer. India is one of the largest markets for travel and tourism and has a dazzling portfolio of experiences, whether cruises, adventure, medical, wellness, sports, wildlife, and religious tourism. India has also been recognized globally as a destination for spiritual tourism. Emphasizing on the huge potential of the country's tourism industry, Prime Minister Narendra Modi last year had urged people to visit at least 15 tourist destinations of India by 2022. Perhaps each of us should now head to those destinations and heed that call that he gave as soon as the danger of the pandemic begins to lift. Considering the incredible contribution of this industry to the Indian economy, India Today magazine since 2016 has been recognizing the outstanding tourist destinations of the country and giving awards to the states that have developed them. For this year, 65 tourist destinations along with all the states and UTs of India were nominated under 8 categories by the India Today team. The categories included adventure, beaches, heritage, mountains, wildlife, festivals and landscapes. We then engaged MDRA, a premier research organization, to conduct a survey and rank the tourist destinations using a methodology that was scientific, transparent and robust. Later in the program, we will be announcing the winners for these categories and hear from many of the chief ministers of the states that have won awards. We also have for you interesting panel discussions on the key issues facing Indian tourism and what we need to do in the months ahead to overcome the challenges posed by the pandemic. So sit back and enjoy the show. I promise you, you will find it rewarding and enriching, and possibly get you thinking of where you would like to go soon for your next holiday destination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chengappa, for that very insightful introduction. We begin with our first panel discussion of the summit. How can tourism reinvent itself for a post-COVID world? I caught up with Ms. Rupinder Barar, ADG, Ministry of Tourism, and Mr. Sanjay Kumar, Additional Chief Secretary, Punjab Tourism, to understand what the sector can do to get back on its feet. Hello and a very warm welcome to the India Today Tourism Summit. This year, of course, we are hosting the summit online, and joining us for this panel discussion are two very esteemed panelists. We're going to be talking about reinventing tourism in the post-COVID world. Joining me is Ms. Rupinder Barar, ADG, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and Mr. Sanjay Kumar, Additional Chief Secretary, Punjab Tourism. Let me begin by asking you, Ms. Barar, what is your assessment of the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector? This is a crucial sector for the economy. What's been your feedback and assessment so far?
Morning, Shweta. At the outset, thanks for having me for the summit. And it is, in fact, a very appropriate time, one would say, because the COVID-19 pandemic is behind us by a few months. We already traveled from March, I would say, in India to now. And yes, the impact has been grave and grim, because travel is what we really depend on when we talk of tourism and hospitality, and that had to come to a standstill. And one can very well estimate the losses, therefore, in terms of all activity just being suspended. And people in the entire supply chain, whether it was air travel, road travel, rail travel, going and staying in hotels, going and visiting monuments, places of tourist interest, everything just had to be suspended. So indeed, the impact is very, very severe on the sector. But at the same time, like every cloud has a silver lining, I think it's also given us a time to think through that. Is it also a time for us to evaluate on a few things that we were not perhaps focusing enough on? One is the whole concept of sustainable and responsible tourism. We've been hearing these buzzwords, they've been around, but what does it really mean? What does it really mean connecting back with nature? And in a country like India, I think it's come out as a great opportunity to look at domestic tourism as a huge market, both in terms of supply and demand, is something that we were not working on. So I would say that at this juncture, where the rate of increase of the pandemic in India is increasingly going downward, and it's a trend which has been there with us for a few weeks. We are very hopeful that in the weeks to come, we shall once again be fully, moving around.
Mr. Kumar, how is the state coping with this loss of tourists, and what is the response of the state in motivating and encouraging hoteliers and restaurants to encourage their business and to nurture them?
Thank you very much. Like rest of the world, as Mrs. Dar was pointing out, we are also affected, and very badly affected. As you know, tourism industry is one which is tertiary sector, and which is far more manpower oriented, where technologies, robots and technology have not taken over the services. So yeah, vastly affected in terms of employment, in terms of revenue, in terms of many other factors, economic and social. But yes, I agree with Juzgar that it also gave us time to introspect in terms of what we have been doing and what we have not been doing. As regards to state of Punjab, we are gearing up in a big way to welcome people from across the country. We get a large number of domestic tourists who come. In fact, Punjab is two tourists. Tourism is important for Punjab. One is the destination tourism for Punjab itself. For example, we have Amritsar circuit, we have
Right.
Mohali and Anandpur Sahib circuit and Patiala circuit and other places. At the same time, Punjab is a big transit destination. People traveling to Jammu and Kashmir, people traveling to Himachal Pradesh. Uh, for example, Vaishno Devi alone gets a very huge tourist traffic,
Right.
which is prevalent. So we are also a transit tourist destination. So that way, a large number of people are going to visit us. Many of those activities have started. Recently, Himachal has opened up, and recently, even Vaishno Devi Darshan has started. Maybe shortly, Jammu and Kashmir will also start. But what we have lost has gone. Nonetheless, there was no other option. But otherwise, we are gearing up. Gradually, our hotels are opening up, restaurants are opening up. Other places of attractions, we are looking because, at the end of it, it's a pandemic and life is more important than anything else.
My question is for Ms. Barar. That when you speak about sustainable tourism, what are we really talking about? Like, are we looking at a new policy or something, guidelines that the tourism sector can refer to?
So, Shweta, there in fact already is an ecotourism policy, and it also already factors in a lot of responsible tourism and sustainable tourism inputs in that. Recently, of course, there's been lot much more dialogue, and in fact, most states already also in their own state tourism policies do have a lot of focus on sustainability as a way forward. But pushing it further in as a learning from the pandemic, we are pushing the whole concept far more aggressively through the social media campaigns, in all the protocols that have been brought out as the guidelines and suggestions and recommendations from the center to the different state governments. The message is, loud and clear in that we, in fact, fortunately, as a country, as a civilization, as a culture, have always been close to sustainable practices, and it's not so long back that we were doing things, carrying things like matkas and surahis and having chai in cooler or eating on a patta or not wasting anything. We've been a culture which is not essentially wasteful in its consumption patterns. And I think it's very important for us to hark back, and the ministry is coming out with a lot of dialogue and discussion on this in all the webinars which we are currently hosting, in all the communications that we are sending from the ministry. The whole theme is being somehow weaved in or laced into the narrative for everybody to bring back focus on sustainable practices.
I want to talk about, ease of doing business because, post-COVID world will demand a different set of requirements from consumers, from travelers, right? So when you look at the West right now, you see that immediately rules were amended and a lot of open air restaurants came up. A lot of tweaks had happened. So this is my question to Mr. Kumar and Ms. Barar on ease of doing business, on opening up rules and regulations so that hoteliers and the sector can respond very quickly with agility to the changed demands.
So, Shweta, as you would have seen around the country, many of the state governments have been working on having the open air cafes and encouraging, movement towards homestay. If we see Himachal or Uttarakhand, there's been a lot of support from the governments in opening up of homestays. And the idea is to go back to nature and try and spend, and also doing the longer vacations, the staycations, workations, all these concepts are coming in. See, ultimately, tourism is a sector where the interplay between the government, the state, and the private stakeholders is very, very essential, because while the governments provide the environment and they provide the support infrastructure, but the industry, so to say, is driven largely by the private stakeholders. And that's why, the dialogue with the stakeholders is an extremely important part of taking tourism and hospitality as a sector forward. And we are very happy to see, in fact, that not only is the customer demand rising for such kind of options, but the suppliers have also identified the need to push these kind of products, and that's why you see a lot of similar products available across the country. There's an understanding that you need to be outdoors. There's an understanding that closed spaces are not the way forward in the times to come.
Are you ready for Odisha? A journey into the heart of eternal wisdom awaits you. Engage with our monuments of peace, rekindle faith, immerse in cultural expressions. Come, explore our timeless secrets. Come to Odisha, India's best kept secret.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा। कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
Mr. Kumar, is the state government working on easing up guidelines, easing up rules and regulations so that the sector can respond with a lot more agility, maybe opening up more open air spaces, allowing restaurants to go up, use the rooftops, the gardens, things like that?
Yeah, of course. In fact, sustainability is the major issue. That's because reckless exploitation of whatever we have will never ultimately pay us. For example, simple thing that the water consumption. When people are coming, they are consuming huge amount of water. Now this has to be sustained. The state of Punjab has got a new tourism policy and also ecotourism policy. So apart from our other tourist attractions, which are major tourist attractions, we are working, and I'm very happy that something like farm tourism in Punjab has started picking up very well. You'll be very happy to know that during this COVID lockdown, a lot of people opted for farm tourism in Punjab, right? Farm tourism and outdoor tourism, and in fact, Punjab was a major attraction. So yes, we are doing that. Sustainability, yes. Sustainability also includes cleanliness. In fact, I personally believe that two factors as a society, if we can take care, we can be a major sustainable tourist destinations across the country. One is the cleanliness and one is security. And I'm not talking on the part of the state alone. I'm talking part of the societal responsibility alone. That if we are more clean, more secure for the tourists to come across. This is also part of our sustainable system. So yes, we are doing that. We are emphasizing, and in fact, apart from places of major attractions, we are working on places like hurricanes, which is more to the nature, so that you go more closer to the nature. You understand the importance of sustainability. In fact, in recent times, people have also started going to little different places because they are also little sick of crowded places, concrete jungles. So they would like to go more to the nature and other places. So that way, yes, Punjab is also working. We hope that in coming days, as Mrs. Dara has pointed out, we realize the importance of sustainable tourism.
Okay, my final question. Let me begin with you, Farhan. What are the key trends that you see emerging in the tourism industry? in the post-pandemic world?
The most heartening and encouraging trend that we are noticing is the interest towards domestic tourism. People are ready to explore, and the good part of domestic tourism is that people are ready to move away from the typical destinations that you thought of. You thought of Goa, or you thought of a Jaipur, or you thought of an Agra. People are actually being very, very creative in crafting their own itineraries. Road travel is going to be the first one opening, and we are already witnessing that, right? And people are really heading out. There's a lot of pent up demand. There is a lot of also, I think, an understanding that let's just go and connect back with nature. So there's a lot more exploration happening. There's lots and lots of queries that we get for adventure tourism. There is a lot of focus on treks, going for long walks, going for forest kind of stays. People are ready to go and stay in smaller establishments rather than going and staying in the big hotels. So they are ready to give up that so-called five-star comfort, but rather go for the more homey feel where you feel more secure. Home food and all those things are, interestingly being leveraged upon. So I think that's the way forward. But of course, we keep insisting on everyone that even when you head out for these so-called small boutique vacations, do wear your mask. We need to be careful. We definitely need to respect the protocols as and when we move out, because we've managed well as a country. However, it's still some way to go forward. And it's certainly not the time to be complacent. So I think that's the way forward. And we look forward to many such communications from people like you to carry the message forward for all the citizens that let's be responsible, but let's also keep living our life with all the challenges that it poses.
What are the key trends that you see emerging in the post-COVID world?
Yeah, key strength is that we are all rediscovering our domestic tourism. That's the key strength. In fact, there was a meeting with Honorable Minister for Tourism, Government of India, and I suggested the Thailand model there. If we can look at it, if we can incentivize the domestic tourism, because over the period, in my limited experience with the tourism sector, I have also worked earlier also. Somehow over a period of time, we have ignored domestic tourism or our domestic tourists, for example. So it's time to, and we are rediscovering them, how important they are. And they are in a very large number. So I think that the key takeaway for me will be to attract domestic tourists again, and run and kickstart our sector, tourism sector, with the help of them.
Thank you so much.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पदचिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
To Orissa, India's best kept secret.
We also have a message from Mr. Mukesh Meshram, Principal Secretary, UP Tourism. Let's take a listen.
उत्तर प्रदेश पर्यटन के नक्शे पर बेहतरीन मुकाम बना पा रहा है और इसी क्रम में 2019 में सर्वाधिक पर्यटक लगभग 54 करोड़ उत्तर प्रदेश में आए, जो देश में शीर्ष स्थान पर है, प्रथम स्थान पर है। और अनेक प्रकार की पर्यटन सुविधाएं हम यहाँ पर विकसित कर रहे हैं। माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व एवं निर्देश पर कई आध्यात्मिक सर्किट, उनमें पर्यटकों की सुविधाओं का विकास किया जा रहा है।
Well, many thanks, Ms. Barar, Mr. Kumar, and of course, Mr. Meshram. That was a very insightful and an informative conversation. Well, with that, we move on to our next panel discussion. After getting tourism back on its feet, we look at hotels as destinations in a quarantined world and after. How many of us have traveled and planned a trip but have been very wary of checking into a hotel? The central air conditioning, the carpets, it's all very daunting. Well, I speak with Mr. Kapil Chopra, founder and CEO of the Postcard Hotel, Mr. Saurabh Rai, Preferred Hotels and Resorts. He's Executive Vice President of South and Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa and Australia, and Mr. Sonu Shivdasani, CEO of Suneva, to better understand, are Indian travelers and international travelers going to be checking into hotels? What kind of hotels are really going to work in the post-pandemic world? And what do hotels need to do to convince customers that they are safe? We begin with our first discussion for the day: hotels as a destination in the quarantined world and after. And I have an amazing panel, and that it's ironically we're all meeting virtually, but my panel is joining me from across the world. We have with us Mr. Sonu Shivdasani, CEO and founder of Suneva, who's joining us from Maldives. Mr. Kapil Chopra, founder and CEO of Postcard Hotels, joining from my neighborhood Gurgaon. And then we have Mr. Saurabh Rai, joining us from Dubai. He's the Executive Vice President of Preferred Hotels and Resorts. So I want to begin by making a confession that I was trying to book a weekend getaway, a hotel in Gurgaon, and I called up the hotel and they told me they are booked for the entire weekend, and it's a very premium property. So I was honestly, I said, how can that be possible? So this is not the first property I checked out. There was another property I checked out at Agra that was also booked. So what's really happening? I mean, we are reading reports, and we know that the hotel industry has been very adversely affected. What's going on? Are hotels running empty? Are they running full? What's the new normal for the hospitality sector? Let me begin by getting Kapil to answer this question.
Okay, so thank you, Shweta, for having us on the panel, and it's always great to see Sonu and Saurabh, both gentlemen that I've known for many years actually. And the answer to that question is very simple, really. So it's kind of I'd give that answer in segments. So if you're today running a luxury business hotel in a city, then actually your revenues are down 80 to 90%, if not more. But that is the severe impact that luxury business hotels have had in India, at least. The second point really being why, because people are not traveling, and only very essential travel is happening. Business is down. People have moved to a new way of working, so they actually don't need to travel too much, and they're avoiding travel. So due to which these hotels have been severely impacted. Also, the fact that 25% of business in these hotels was coming from the MICE segment, which is meetings, incentives, and corporate events, which is kind of moved to zero. So luxury business hotels, if you're operating, you are kind of really running 80 to 90% below last year, same time. So very severely impacted. If you are now running a leisure hotel, or like you said, so a lot of people in India have been stuck at their home since 23rd of March. So now on the weekends, they're trying to go away to any hotel and just relax. Two reasons for that. One, there is what you call pent up, frustration staying at home. Second point being, on weekends, hotels are extremely reasonable because they're kind of empty on the weekdays. So all the luxury business hotels have kind of become staycation hotels in cities, so where people just go and unwind. And that is why the weekend occupancy is higher. And the rates are very, very attractive for people to actually take a break. Coming to the third category is leisure hotels. Leisure hotels are slightly doing better if you can drive, but now even by air, actually that segment is recovering much faster. But if you're running a leisure hotel, you generally are in a much better shape in specific pockets in the country, because people started moving out 2 months back, and actually what's really happened is the average length of stay in leisure hotels have gone up significantly. So leisure is doing much better. It's already back to 50-60% of the pre-COVID levels. That's what's happening in leisure hotels. So this is how I see all the segments playing out in the Indian market.
Okay, let me bring in Sonu here. Sonu, you've been in Maldives for almost 6-7 months now. Is it so when in Delhi or in India, in fact, it's very difficult to do social distancing. There's a lot of paranoia. But is it the same, from where you are? Like, is it as bad? Is the hotels industry impacted as severely in the Maldives, considering social distancing is much easier to do there, and probably hygiene is also, and hygiene standards are relatively easier to maintain?
So has the industry in the Maldives been affected to the same extent that Kapil described? So before I go on to answering that question, I'd like to build on what Kapil said. There is complete diversity in the hospitality sector, and I think that corporate travel, whilst MICE and weddings may have reduced temporarily, for corporate travel, I think that's a permanent reduction, perhaps not to the extent of 80 to 90%. But personally, my experience, my travel will halve, because what you find is technologies are there and the adoption of technologies takes time. So for example, I'll give you an example. You wouldn't believe it, but it took 30 years for factories to introduce machines that were powered by electricity, 30 years after Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. It took so long. And it was a technology that was there to drive incredible efficiencies for these factories, but they continued with their steam engine. And I think it's been a bit like with Zoom. The technology's been there, but it takes 20 days to form a new habit. And I think slightly more to break old habits, because we get used to our things. And I've never had more Zoom calls than now, just like what we're doing now. And it's a technology that I'm so comfortable with. And I find that I can get a lot done. I can be very effective. And so my personal experience is that my corporate travel will halve. And I think in the short term, that's obviously going to affect urban hotels, very dependent on corporate travel. But what it will do in the medium term, once people get over the fear, because I think the biggest challenge with COVID has been the fear itself, to paraphrase FDR during his inaugural speech. The fear itself has actually caused more damage than the virus. And I think once we get over the fear, then cities will do very well, because there'll be more leisure travelers coming in. There's fewer corporate travelers taking those valuable hotel rooms like London, Paris, New York, etc. And that will allow the leisure traveler is much more productive for the city, because they go out, they go to the theatre, restaurants, museums, whereas the businessman goes to a meeting, has a soup in the hotel, does his work, flies out the next morning, spends very little consumption in the city. So I think this in the medium term will be very good for these beautiful urban locations, the key gateway capitals in the future. So to touch on what Kapil was saying, and I think this point about 6 months of confinement and pent-up demand, we're seeing that as well. And the only restriction has been governments restricting travel from certain countries into our destinations. And the pent-up demand is such, and the frustration is such, that I hear people now talking about it being unconstitutional, especially in Australia as a perfect example of this, and onerous conditions on returning. So with us, travel started slowly. It was anemic, but we actually see ourselves, our last quarter, October, November, December, all three resorts will be up on 19, so greater than 2019. We already have double on the books for October at Snevakiri. So Snevakiri is a slight domestic issue because the Thai borders remain closed, but we've got, and the Thais love to travel. So there's a huge pent up domestic Thai demand, which will generate more revenues for us in October than we would have got if the borders had been open. But also in the Maldives, here where I'm at Snevakiri, we're about 20-30% up on the books compared with what we had last year. And we're forecasting to be about 20% higher for October. December, I think, will be an amazing December. The bookings are starting to come in because slowly, the demand has been there, but it's been the restriction. And slowly, the restrictions are falling away. And I think what's our benefit here in the Maldives and here at Soneva is that we operate one island, one resort. And in our particular case, we're, I think, the only hotel company, or very few hotels companies, to actually have our own testing. So we have a real-time PCR test machine from Roche. We're testing all our hosts, all our employees. twice before they arrive, once on arrival, on a second time, if they come from a local island which we know is COVID-free. And the Maldives is largely COVID-free. Apart from Male, there's no community spread throughout the country. And it's really 1,200 isolation centers, not 1,200 islands, 1,200 isolation centers. So it's a perfect context to stop this virus. So our hosts who come from local islands tested on arrival, again on day 7, and foreign hosts tested 3 times, and they're only allowed out dealing with guests and other hosts after their second test, and provided it's negative, of course. And all our guests are tested on arrival. They have to remain in the privacy of their private villa and beach and pool for a maximum of 24 hours until we get the results. Because we have the machine, it's processed very quickly. So this one island, one resort, COVID-free environment where people are not served with people with masks is very, very welcome. And so that's why I think we've seen great demand. And so there is that great diversity in travel, urban leisure, one island, remote leisure, corporate, and they're all going to be impacted in different ways.
Wow. Saurabh, bringing you in here, how is it looking in Dubai? Are things returning close to normal, or would you say the situation is very similar to what we are witnessing in India right now?
Sure. Thanks, Shweta. It's a pleasure to be sharing the panel with Kapil and Sonu, and a lot of great content has already been shared in here. So I think firstly, a quick comment on what you said about the report you cited that calls out the recovery going all the way out to 2023. I think the good old feisty power of human resilience cannot be underestimated. We've been through many such crises before, whether it was the SARS or the financial bust, and we saw how the recovery came through pretty much within the 12 to 18 months window, right? And we have already started to see some green shoots in here. And what you experienced over the weekend when you call these resorts or hotels to book is not an exception. This is what we are experiencing all over. Let me pick up, because we have hotels around the world, let me pick up the segmentation that Kapil spoke about and add some more color to it. If you look at destinations like pick up, Udaipur in India, or Dubai, or Morocco, or some of the Indian Ocean resorts in here, we have seen localized and regional demand come to rescue, and properties are consistently running. We have hotels within our portfolio that are actually running about 50 to 60% year-to-date occupancies. And those kind of green shoots and inspirational signs is not what gets picked up in what the consumers are reading, right? So the fear factor is actually depressing the reality of some kind of travel within the region that is taking place. For sure, segments of business like we already spoke about, which are all to do with these urban corporate travel or meeting business-centric hotel, are going to have a bigger challenge at hand. But that also brings a big reality to the fore that many hotels have almost over-relied on accommodation as a revenue churner, right? There has to be a big shift. And the fact that the resorts and regional getaways are doing better underlines the demand and growing demand for experiential travel, right? And I think no one knows this better than Sonu and Kapil in here. I'd invite them to talk a little bit more about how the concept of creating experiences in that is now the big draw, and almost hedge your bets. So even if you look at, so this was about the resort properties, but even if you look at city center hotels, I'll give you a live example. You asked a question about Dubai. One of our partner hotels in Dubai, the Palazzo Versace in here, has actually closed the month at 90% month-to-date occupancy. And that is on the back of a diversified experience, right? Where you're playing and appealing to multiple segments, where you come in for a city break. And it's not just about a well-detailed accommodation experience, but it is beautifully overlaid with a very independent and wholesome food and beverage and gourmet experience. That is then overlaid with a very well thought out junior guest program, which becomes inviting for the kids who become the decision makers, and they say, we want to go and stay at these properties. So even for the urban properties that are able to connect a little bit better with the changing segmentation of business and are open and early adopters of responding to the changing segmentation by delivering an urban hotel experience, they're going to find themselves recovering better, faster, stronger than the ones who hold on to the traditional model.
Okay.
Yeah, I could not agree more with what Saurabh just said. Thank you. I just to share my experience on some of the points he touched about, this idea of experiential travel, the importance of creating content for kids.
I was in fact going to come to that. I was going to come to that.
Right.
How is this making you rethink, your business models? How is this making you rethink what you offer to your clients? Do you expect, or are you already witnessing a change in consumption behavior? How is this going to disrupt the hospitality sector? So that's something I'm very curious about.
I think COVID's actually not forced us to rethink, but actually accentuated our philosophy and values. So if I can step back, our core purpose is slow life. Essentially, we're offering our guests luxuries whilst minimizing our impact on their health and enhancing their well-being, their wellness, and their health. And sort of reducing our impact on the environment. So sustainable wellness and luxury have always gone hand in hand with sustainable. And I think COVID has accentuated the importance of both sustainability and health. Mm-hmm. And we've done that by questioning what really is a luxury, because what we found is that the context of the wealth of the successful has changed. Historically, our guests were the landed gentry living in urban environments, fresh air, fresh food, space, privacy. Today, they're urban, where some of what the successful took for granted in the past are now rare. Fresh air and fresh food in an urban context are almost impossible. Space and privacy at a huge premium. So hence, inspiring a lifetime of rare experiences, being able to walk barefoot for a week, having a salad was plucked from the garden that morning. You might be one of the richest men in India, but can you watch a movie where the stars are not just on the screen, or see the stars through one of the largest telescopes in the areas we operate with someone like Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, explaining to you, or our resident astronomer, that there's a universe out there, or having a shower, listening to the hotel's Bose sound system with your favorite song already downloaded by our team on the hotel's iPod, but seeing the full moon on the stars. Those are things you can't do in an urban context. And what COVID has done is it's denied people of the benefits of an urban environment. You can't go out to restaurants, you can't engage with other people, but it's accentuated some of the challenges of urbanization. And we've had growing urbanization. By 2030, the prediction is that 70% of the world's population will be urban. And COVID has accentuated the limitations, the space, the privacy, the fresh air, the fresh food. So what we've been doing for 25 years in our philosophy has just become all the more important and all the more stronger. And of course, wellness has been at the key of Suneva when we created Six Senses and put some of the first spas in a lot of Asian countries, including Dubai, with our Six Senses spa in the Madinah. We'd always focused on wellness, and now it's more important than ever. So I don't think it's a question of coping or redirecting our energies. It's the fact that COVID has brought out what we felt were long-term trends and just accelerated them.
Are you ready for Odisha? A journey into the heart of eternal wisdom awaits you. Engage with our monuments of peace, rekindle faith, immerse in cultural expressions. Come, explore our timeless secrets. Come to Odisha, India's best kept secret.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में। कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
Kapil, I want to bring you in here. How do you see the Indian traveler? Asking
So
for.
I agree with I agree with Sonu. So you really look at his the way that he kind of built up six senses, and he built up Soneva. So I always say when I would move out from Oberoi to do the Postcard Hotel, one of the big things was there were three companies that I really thought changed the way people holidayed. Yeah, in different styles. I thought one was Soneva and Six Senses that Sonu founded. One was, and I've said it in enough interviews, so it's just not because Sonu is there. Okay, and the second was for me Aman Resorts, which changed the way resorts should be built and experienced. And the third for me was One and Only, which brought in lifestyle and a different way to holiday. So, but all three had very different philosophies in operating and whatever. And when I was trying to do the Postcard Hotel, the whole idea was to create 3-4 things which also like kind of helped us and kind of accelerated the entire adoption of the hotel. So I call it like when demonetization happened in India, it was a Paytm moment. Everybody moved to a mobile wallet. For us, something like that's happened with the Postcard Hotel. Reasons are very simple. All our hotels are small. And when we launched, I still remember our first press conference 2 years back when we launched the hotel, we said, in our view, small is big. And we are trying to build for India first. Now, we never anticipated something like this will happen, but now people want to go to smaller hotels. You don't want to go to a 200-room hotel and pick up a plate in a restaurant and say, God, who else has picked up this plate? And you don't want to go to a pool where 100 people have already been or swam in that pool. So how do you create a very private experience in a smaller hotel? And, so we've been fortunate from that perspective that I'll give you real numbers. So July was when Goa opened. And Bhutan is still not open because it went into a lockdown again. But when it opened for a month and the local demand was great. And Sri Lanka, where we have another hotel, is still a bit slow. But let me talk about Goa for 1 second. July, when we opened, we were 85% below last year. So 85% below last year. That's what we did in July. In August, we were 34% over last year. Okay, and please remember that if you had to go to Goa, you needed an RT-PCR test. So you needed to be COVID negative to even enter the city. And in September, we are 118% over last year. And at this rate, by the 31st of October, I will be over what we did last year. From 1st of April to 31st October, in spite of not operating for close to 3.5 months. And the reason for that is very simple. Suddenly, the entire demand has got consolidated and actually come to us because we are small, we are intimate, we built for India first. So if you are in India and every year you went in a private jet or you book nice business class or first class tickets to Europe or the US, you spend 20-30 lakhs there. You've kind of, where else do you go in India to? So you go to Goa now, lesser number of cases, more private. You can book the Postcard Hotel out. People are booking the entire hotel. Average length of stay has gone from 2.3 nights in Goa, because otherwise it was go on a Friday, come back on a Sunday or a Monday. It's gone from 2.3 to 9.1 nights. But like I said, I think like Soneva is, when Sonu said that October, November, December is looking good, means we can see it. So these kind of hotels, which are very highly focused on experiential travel, which are very highly focused on sourcing locally, which are highly focused on a very high level of personalized experience and very high level of privacy, maybe the only ones which will do very well and kind of deliver month on month double digit or even triple digit returns or growth over last year.
Okay.
That's the way that I see that what's happened in Goa.
So I'm sensing a lot more optimism than one, gets if one reads a report. So 2023 is a far-fetched number. You think that the recovery is going to be much faster? It's already underway.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the recovery is going to be much faster. And Saurabh said it very nicely that, generally people are pretty resilient and people will move back much faster. And I agree with Sonu when he says that fear is bigger than actually the disease itself. But I also think one thing is actually changed. And every time a pandemic or a very big event happens, something changes, yeah? And the thing that's changed is what Sonu picked up, that corporate travels change forever. Means just think about it. If I had to go meet somebody in Mumbai, and I would have said 6 months back, can we do a Zoom call? He would have felt insulted, saying he thinks it's not good for him.
We're doing all our events on Zoom. We would have been traveling all over the country.
So that is a very big behavior change. So now if 6 months down the line, you would tell somebody, I'd love to talk to you. Can we get on a quick Zoom call to finish this up? You won't have to travel. So, I was on a flight pretty much every week. And I don't think I'm going to get on a flight maybe once a month, maybe twice a month maximum. So I think that segment's totally changed. And a lot of business hotels, like Saurabh was mentioning of what the hotel in Dubai was doing, would have to really revisit their business models in a very significant way. And I think Sonu not being in a city and we not being in a city and both our brand philosophy saying that we will not open city hotels ideally is actually helping us. Not that we planned for it, but it's just that the way we saw our brands to come together and kind of create a different narrative of sustainable, responsible luxury.
Okay.
Sure, just to kind of come in here and add a thought to what Kapil just said. One segment that's changed forever is the corporate travel. But another segment that's changing for good, I hope, is the leisure experiential purpose-led travel, right? I think the pandemic has brought forward a very, very strong moment of realization, and not to get philosophical about it, but life is short, and it's given us a wake-up call in making now count and not wait it out for tomorrow, right? So this is in our social circle, business circle, industry peership, and guest fraternity. There is definitely, and we've run surveys of our loyalty base of I prefer, and we've asked our end patrons, and consistent message that we are hearing from the end traveler, as well as the luxury travel advisor fraternity, is that the demand and the recognition for a purpose-led, mission-oriented, sustainability focus, where elements of connecting with the community, giving back to society, good guest, good host philosophy are scoring higher than they ever did before. So going forward, definitely what you're seeing right now is being bad repped as revenge travel and what have you. It is true that international borders aren't open, so the domestic resorts are gaining. But I believe there is going to be a continued trend of such experiential, connected travel picking up even post the pandemic, where the value that's attached to these memory creating, connecting experiences is going to be here to stay.
Absolutely.
It's
right.
Can I just build on what Saurabh's just said?
Very quickly. Yeah, we just have to wind up. So very quickly.
Yes, no, absolutely. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think, but I think there are some guests that are still out for just the inspiring experiences. For them, what sells it is dinner on the sandbank, or the Sonu's picnic, where you go fishing in the morning, you catch the fish, and you go to a private island, the chef's there, and you prepare the fish yourself and wrap it in a banana leaf, dig it in the ground, etc. Those are more, or a dolphin cruise where you see the dolphins. I think for some of our guests, that's still the priority. But what I am noticing is more guests are looking into what we're doing on the sustainability side and asking more and enjoying it, and also asking for content for their kids. So we recycle 90% of our waste. We're like a public utility. We're like a city in the Maldives, in that we generate our power, we desalinate our water, we treat our waste. We recycle 90%. The food and the cardboard turns into compost. The branches we turn into charcoal. 83% of our non-structural bricks are made from waste materials. Styrofoam is used for isolation, although we've reduced that quantity. Aluminium into hooks for our villas. Glass, we ban branded water, but we still have the Chateau Yquem or the Margot, which we turn into works of great beauty. And what we found is a lot of the guests are enjoying going to our Ecocentro, and they're liking the content we're creating for children. So we have this fantastic elaborate children's facility at Suneva Fushi, which is 1,500 square meters, designed by the children of our repeat guests. 55% of our revenues comes from return guests. So it's designed by them. But what the parents are enjoying more is what happens outside the den, such as a lesson from our waste to wealth manager, where we're recycling 90% of our waste, or the permaculturalist teaching how to create the compost, make biochar, put it into the soil to enrich it, create a raised bed, the symbiotic relationship of plants, or the mycologist who's growing the mushrooms, or the astronomer at the observatory showing the stars to the kids.
You making us want to travel to Maldives now. It sounds
Sorry? That's true.
Right.
But that's,
well, Shweta, I must admit, I'm a victim of Sonu's spell because my daughters have pulled me back to Soneva 5 times over, and we can't wait to go back exactly for all that Sonu's talking about in here.
I'm sorry we've run out of time, but we just hope that things are better. COVID becomes history soon, and we are able to take that wonderful trip to the Maldives for sure, and to Goa, of course.
For sure, can't wait.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
To Orissa, India's best kept secret.
So it will be experiential travel over business travel. Well, many thanks Mr. Chopra, Mr. Saurabh Rai and Mr. Sonu Shivdasani for that very amazing perspective. We of course look forward to traveling with full enthusiasm very soon. Well, with that, we move on to our next panel discussion. Tourism is one of the most crucial sectors of India's economy. It generates millions of jobs, and not only in the formal sector but also in the informal sector. Our next panel talks about my mantras for a tourism revival in the post-COVID economy. I'd like to invite Mr. Vikram Kapoor, Additional Chief Secretary, Tamil Nadu, Mr. Vishal K. Dev, Commissioner cum Secretary, Department of Tourism, Sports and Youth Services, Odisha, and Mr. Jinu Devan, Commissioner Tourism, Gujarat Tourism, on their strategies to revive tourism in their respective states. Well, tourism undoubtedly is one of the most crucial sectors, one of the growth drivers for the economy. Overall, 12.19% of the total employment is generated through this sector directly or indirectly. And much like many other sectors, COVID-19 has literally taken the breath out of this crucial sector that creates a lot of jobs in the formal and in the informal sector. To decode how this sector is going to revive itself in a post-COVID world, we have with us three stalwarts from three different states that are all very, very beautiful. Let me begin by welcoming Mr. Vikram Kapoor, Additional Chief Secretary, Tourism of Tamil Nadu. Then we have with us Mr. Vishal K. Dev, Commissioner cum Tourism Secretary of Odisha, and Mr. Jinu Devan, Commissioner of Tourism from Gujarat. So thank you very much. And we are doing this conclave virtually because of COVID-19. Otherwise, we would have had you with us in Delhi, and we would have been sitting with a live audience and doing this conversation. But perhaps the topic would have been different at that time. So I want to begin let me begin by asking Mr. Kapoor on, how severe has the impact been on the sector in your state?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. We'll straight away get to the point. There's no secret that among all sectors, the worst affected by the COVID lockdown has been the tourism and hospitality sector. And while we don't have exact numbers as of now, but a large number of the workforce has been rendered unemployed, and this would span hotels, restaurants, tour operators, travel, and the host of other services that come along with this industry. When we went in for progressive unlockdown, one of the last sectors that were opened up was this sector. And even now, though we have opened up the hotels and restaurants for business, there are hardly any footfalls. And the estimate by the industry is that it would take over a year and possibly 2 years for it to come back to pre-COVID levels. And definitely this year, the industry is likely to incur huge losses. They have been making representations both with the center and the state government for certain reliefs. But unfortunately, because of the stressed financial situation of the government, it's not been possible to immediately provide them any significant relief, either in terms of waiver or deferment of taxes, duties, and other dues. The MSME package that was announced by the central government, I believe, has yet to be availed of, and there is lack of clarity whether this particular sector can avail the benefits under that package. While those kind of while those kind of supply side situation, measures have been the industry and are being examined. Unfortunately, there is not much that could be done in terms of demand revival, because given the fact that most of the people have lost jobs, or those who have retained their jobs have seen a decline in their incomes. So the disposable income available now with those who used to traditionally patronize this sector is low. And even as people come out of the lockdown, it's not very likely that they would prioritize expenditure, spending on either tourism or on other hospitality services. So therefore, it's going to be a very, very long haul ahead for this sector to revive.
I just quickly want to go on to Mr. Diwan right now. Mr. Diwan, what's been the Gujarat experience? Because Gujarat tends to be more proactive in containing a fallout. Does the state have the resources to give a bailout to the sector, and any backup plans that you've thought of?
Just like Vikram sir was mentioning, the tourism industry is one of the worst hit, and the story is same in the state of Gujarat too. As far as our state is concerned, mainly our tourist flow has substantially reduced, and as a result of that, the hospitality as well as the tourism industry is badly hit too. Almost just a tentative this thing by the FAID. They have said, they are almost saying that the loss is almost to the power of 30,000 crore to 40,000 crore, and almost out of the 1.5 million people who are employed in this particular sector in the state of Gujarat, around half of them might have lost the jobs too. So our immediate attention is on reviving this sector and how we can do. The state has come out with a common bailout package for all the industries in general, but as far as the state of Gujarat is concerned, no specific package for the tourism sector has come. It has been announced, but for us, our priority is basically giving importance to the marketing side and to come out with some new packages for promoting such locations within the state of Gujarat, which can attract more demand to the state from the cities of the 4 main cities and the towns of Gujarat, as well as from nearby states. And importance is also given to the skill development sector to adapt to the changes of the industry, so that once this unlocking is going on and the industry comes to almost to a normal, they should be also able to adapt to that particular situation. And meanwhile, we have come out with 2 policy packages, one in the form of a heritage tourism policy package 2020, as well as a revised homestay policy package to boost the industry to boost the industry, and we are almost on the verge of coming out with a new tourism policy too. So in those policies, we can expect at least some sort of a bailout. I cannot say 100% bailout, but some incentives and concession to the industry will be definitely made available.
Okay. Mr. Dev, what's been the Odisha experience? How bad is it over there? And how much of your economy is dependent on tourism?
Ms. Ponj, Mr. Kapoor and Mr. Devan have given a fairly comprehensive overview of how badly the tourism sector has been affected. The story is not different in Odisha. Hotels have been closed for a long time. Restaurants have also been closed. And what is important to note is that unlike many other sectors of the economy, let's say industries have started and the demand would have picked up immediately. With tourism, that fear of people, those apprehensions of whether it is safe to travel, etc., is something which will kind of lead to a longer recovery time. But at the same time, I think I am very hopeful that things will revive early. We even had the governor of RBI saying a couple of days back that tourism might just see a V-shaped recovery. And we had done Eastern India's first glamping festival at Konark Beach. It became hugely popular last year. And we want to now replicate it to 4 more destinations apart from Konark. So before we started on that, we did a demand survey of whether people would be willing to travel. And we are very encouraged by the response of the people. We got about 81% people saying they would want to come back. Similarly, Condé Nast Traveler carried out a survey wherein about 80% of the people say that they miss travel more than anything else. So these sentiments, the wanderlust, I think, will hopefully see that the industry, the sector recovers faster than what is being expected.
Okay, so I just have this question. It's been almost 6 months now, and there was a lockdown for the first 3 months, and then after that, there's been a staggered opening. There's again policies. Tourism has been one of the last sectors to open up. What's the reason? Why is it that even the states have not addressed the pain in the sector proactively? Like the center has not come out with a stimulus package. Yes, but even the states, while talking to 3 of you, I get a sense that there has been really no help that's been extended to this sector. What's the reason for that? Would you like to start, Mr. Kapoor?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, the states are also under deep financial stress. Revenues are not forthcoming, and therefore most of their effort has been towards challenging the pandemic, spending on the pandemic, and therefore there is very little fiscal space available with the states right now because of the poor revenue collection. That's one. And even in terms of giving waivers, say for electricity bills or for property tax or any kind of deferment, would impede the capacity of these parastatal bodies to service their sector. So everyone is under financial stress, so there are limits to what the states can do in terms of providing fiscal or financial support to the tourism industry.
Okay, but can we address this creatively? For instance, you incentivize industry to open up, and you incentivize them to adapt to the new normal. Like Mr. Dev was pointing out, that their survey showed that there is a lot of pent-up demand, which is true, there is. So, somewhere one gets a sense that there is also a lack of confidence amongst people, because we don't know how, if hotels or smaller boutique properties will really take into account the new COVID norms. So are we looking at addressing the problem from from a facilitation point of view, from adding more transparency, getting businesses to, instead of saying that don't serve alcohol or don't open up, how about approaching the problem from the other point of view, saying that you open but with these conditions, and you inspire the confidence of the consumer? Mr. Dev or Mr. Devan, whoever wants to take this.
I think that's a very valid point, Ms. Punch. You see, proactively, we did a few things, not just about the waiver, but yes, bar license fees have been deferred, and we are actively considering on 3 proposals. One is billing them on actual consumption of electricity. deferment of property tax payment, and also deferment of license fees payment, bar license fees. So these are things which are more direct. But what we have also done is we started discussions with various stakeholders, and we started COVID-specific training programs. So we got an IHM here, we got an Institute of Tourism and Travel Management along with them, because there are a whole lot of hotels and restaurants which cannot afford to train all their employees. So we've taken up this training program, on COVID protocols and guidelines for the entire sector, hotels, restaurants, people who work for them. This is being funded by us. We also have a very strong component of ecotourism within Odisha. So we've got roughly 50 nature camps across the state, which are managed completely by the local community. And a substantial percentage of the revenue also which comes to these ecotourism properties goes to the community.
Okay.
So the training of these community also is being done along with IHM and IITTM. So those kind of initiatives, yes, we've taken also for drivers of Uber, Ola, various registered travel agencies. We've taken up training of these people also, and this is something which is continuing.
Are you ready for Odisha? A journey into the heart of eternal wisdom awaits you. Engage with our monuments of peace, rekindle faith, immerse in cultural expressions. Come, explore our timeless secrets. Come to Odisha, India's best kept secret.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
Mr. Diwan, anything that Gujarat has done for the people who've lost their jobs, to for the industry, so that they're better geared to cope with the challenges of the post-COVID world?
In terms of the fiscal term, this thing, just like every industry was given the incentive in terms of property taxes or electricity duty deferment, the tourism and hospitality sector too got the benefits of them for the initial 2-3 months. But our concentration was more on the capacity building side. And just like you are also mentioning, to build the confidence among the customers. We were, from the first day itself of the unlocking, where this hospitality industry was allowed to reopen, thus SOPs of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, once they had come out with it, we also published them. We made it known to all the people of the industry. Specific training programs were held for the staff of those particular hotels and the other restaurants. And we initiated such training programs. And we also came out with some specific campaigns on those lines, so as to instill that confidence among the public that most of these hotels, almost all of them who have been opened, they are following these guidelines. Now you are safe to come back. Even for big pilgrimage sites, like we have got Somnath, Dwarka, Ambaji, big pilgrimage sites, also they were also following these specific guidelines. So we also made specific campaigns to ensure that people to visit such sites also.
Okay.
And regarding one or two, there were specific ecotourism sites which are near to the bigger cities. People really wanted to go because there is a particular site which is almost 1 hour from Ahmedabad, where ecotourism is night. On Saturdays and Sundays, you can now almost find 50,000 plus people. They just want to reach there. So that demand is there, and people are now, they are willing to come out. So our now priority is to ensure that all those COVID unlocking related guidelines are followed in such locations,
yes.
and they.
So there are 50,000 people going to that place now. Wow, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Today the collector is even taking a specific meeting to tackle the situation. He was just calling me from there to ensure that how we can properly guide them, to ensure that all the safety and these health related guidelines are followed in the proper manner there. So we are providing them with all the facilities there, the infrastructure there too.
Okay.
So that they
anything,
can come back.
anything that you think that the center can do to help the sector across different states? Mr. Kapoor, I'd like to begin by posing that question to you. Anything that you think that the center can do to, stem the decline?
So, as I was mentioning, one is, of course, that the package that was announced for the MSME sector, that could be utilized for extending support to the hospitality sector. Treat them like an MSME and give them the various financial packages that are available. But again, coming back to the demand side, although it's very heartening to know what steps Odisha is taking, and in Gujarat what's happening, our experience is that although SOPs are now in place, yet people are not very willing to travel. One, of course, is that Tamil Nadu has been one of the worst hit states, and therefore it's been slow in allowing people to travel across districts for fear of infection, and people themselves are a bit more cautious, in traveling. So in order to actually give them the confidence, I think we need to kind of incentives even for the domestic tourists. International tourists will take some time to come in because of the general, restriction in the international travel. Even domestic flights are limited right now to this part of the country. So what we can right now do, the low-hanging fruit, is to kind of target the domestic and within the state or neighboring state people who can travel by road and who can visit places. But for them, I think if the central government can come up with an aggressive program of giving discounts for travel, discounts in terms of the rentals, in terms of the ticketing and all, some kind of financial package which will boost that demand. Unfortunately, the state governments don't have that kind of fiscal resources right now to provide that subsidy. But subsidized travel, I just would like to mention, for example, the central government and certain state governments provide leave travel concession to their employees. The idea is to allow them, to encourage them to travel at the cost of the exchequer. Likewise, it won't be a bad idea if the central government could think in terms of a special scheme which will allow people to travel by availing certain discounts if they travel during a particular period to certain destinations. It always happens. Like, for example, religious pilgrimages are always, a lot of them are subsidized by the central government. Likewise, I think there's no harm if the central government also thinks of some special scheme, maybe over the next 1 year, not a perpetual scheme, but right now to give that boost in the demand. Unless you give some fiscal sops to people, it's very difficult for people to set apart their limited disposable income on hospitality.
Fair enough. Very quickly, Mr. Dev, your thoughts on this? Anything that you feel that the center can do to encourage, to give the sector a boost?
I think Mr. Kapoor mentioned a couple of things which I completely agree to. So what has happened is that most of the states have, under the austerity measures that have been taken, they've done away with the LTC for 2 years. I think that's a very retrograde step, I would say. And, the issue of creation of demand is very important. LTC is a great way of encouraging people to travel. And I think it will increase the demand within the country, more people would travel. So that is one aspect which can be done. And, restoring flight connectivity, train connectivity at the earliest, the pre-COVID levels. of course, adhering to all the guidelines, the protocols that have been specified. Those are very important. And I think the package that has been announced by the central government for the MSME, there's some clarity on how that will apply to tourism. So some vague statement was made that tourism industry MSMEs would also be applicable, would also be covered under the scheme. But I think more clear guidelines have to be brought out, and it should be included in the scheme.
Okay, Mr. Diwan, your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe the tour operators are one of the worst hit. So we can think of giving them some sort of a soft loan kind of thing, a working capital loan kind of a thing, so as to make them come out of this particular issue. And one thing Sir was mentioning about flight connectivity to specific tourist locations, just like Run of Kutch, from important cities of India, some Udan kind of scheme, some BGF model can be thought of whereby we can bring more people to such destinations. So if some sort of a BGF model more on the same line of Udan can be thought of, more people may be attracted to go to such locations, especially which are remote in sense, maybe Run of Kutch in Gujarat or Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, such kind of locations. I think state of Kerala had come out with a working capital loan kind of thing to its tour operators and others in the hospitality sector. So in the banking, central government can think of announcing something on the same lines to the industry as such.
Okay, very quickly, one key mantra for reviving tourism in the post-COVID world. Very quickly. I'll begin with you, Mr. Kapoor.
One key mantra, according to me, is to incentivize demand, boost demand by providing direct incentives to consumers. So find some schemes, some models by which actually you can put money in the hands of potential tourists and link to actual, spending in the hospitality sector.
Okay, Mr. Dev, your thoughts?
I think each state needs to go back to the drawing board to figure out what its strengths are and how to move forward in the post-COVID world. So we've done that, and a couple of things that we've come out with is we all know the people would be reluctant to travel by air and by trains for some time. So road travel has to be encouraged. We already come out with a campaign called Odisha by Road, and we'll be launching it on the 27th September, World Tourism Day, where we've worked out itineraries from cities close by to Odisha. So let's say Jamshedpur and Ranchi in Jharkhand, Vizag in Andhra Pradesh, Raipur, Raigad, Bilaspur, etc. and Chhattisgarh, and Calcutta, of course. So we worked out itineraries from all these cities, and these are fairly detailed itineraries. They have, where if you want to take rest, if you want to eat, what are the places. So very comprehensive program. We're also launching a campaign with Car and Bike India.
Okay.
We're calling it Kalinga Ride. So, specific components of the third was the eco tour I mentioned. Right. It's a big priority for us because with the change in people's preferences and the frequency of travel, they want different experiences, want to go back to the nature.
Okay.
So there are 4 or 5 components, and we've also suggested to the government of India that perhaps states need to tie up with one another. So we have tied up with Gujarat. We signed an MOU sometime in January this year for encouraging travel between the 2 states. So Gujarat promotes Odisha within Gujarat. We promote Gujarat within Odisha. So similar arrangements for regional long duration circuits can be worked out among different states.
Okay. All right, Diwan, very quickly, your winning mantra?
Yeah, focus on local tourism and full-fledged campaign to instill confidence among the potential consumers so that they can visit. And thoda hatke socho, or maybe think of for something like wellness tourism, eco tourism, adventure tourism, where people are confident that only few people will be available there, so they are safe and secure there.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. We do hope and that things are better and we are able to travel across the country. Thank you very much.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा। कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
To Orissa, India's best kept secret.
Well, with that, we come to our awards ceremony. We begin with the first category, the best heritage destination in the country. And the second runner-up in this category is Ahmedabad in Gujarat. The first runner-up is Khajuraho in Madhya Pradesh. And the winner is the Pink City, Jaipur, Rajasthan. With that, we move on to our next category, wildlife destinations. The second runner-up here is Namdapha National Park, Arunachal Pradesh. The first runner-up is Indian Wild Ass Sanctuary in Gujarat. And the winner in this category is none other than Ranthambore National Park in Savai Madhopur, Rajasthan. Moving on to our next category, mountain destinations. The second runner-up here is Araku Valley in Andhra Pradesh. First runner-up is Pachmari in Madhya Pradesh. And the winner is the beautiful and stunning Munnar in Kerala.
Dear dignitaries, Kerala Tourism as a global brand has won many national and international awards during its long journey. However, we consider the India Today Tourism Award as a special honor as it comes from one of the India's leading media houses with an impeccable track record. The awards were decided through a nationwide poll to arrive at India's favorite destinations, which makes the selection process above board. It is heartening to note that renowned hill station Munnar has been adjudged as the winner in mountain destinations category. It is significant that the award is being presented as part of the India Today Tourism Conclave, where major stakeholders of Indian tourism industry converge to virtually deliberate on the post-pandemic course of this vital sector. This award for Kerala has come at the most opportune moment when the state is charting out the future course of its tourism and travel industry being devastated by COVID-19 pandemic. This recognition will certainly encourage the partners of tourism in the state. I once again thank India Today for this award. Congratulations to all over other winners. Thank you all.
Many congratulations to the winners and the runners-up. Moving on to our next category, Festival Destinations. The second runner-up is the stunning Konark Festival in Odisha. First runner-up is Katra in Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, it's Durga Puja season. So the winner here is, no surprises there, Durga Puja of West Bengal.
It is a matter of great pleasure and pride for us that the India Today Group has chosen to recognize our Durga Puja in West Bengal for a distinguished award in the prism of tourism. Durga Puja has been our iconic festival for hundreds of years. But it is only after 2011 that the government of West Bengal has started taking effective steps to promote the occasion as a landmark event for international and national tourism. Honorable Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee took personal interest in projecting the puja as a central item of Bengal culture and in presenting it as the planet's greatest festive congregation. The Immersion Carnival, as organized by the state now, has emerged as a fantastic draw for thousands of tourists from all over the world. In terms of generating income and livelihood for lakhs of people, and in terms of being an intimate bonding occasion for millions, this indeed has now evolved to be an outstanding culmination of people's plural energies in this great, diverse country of ours. Government of West Bengal thanks you, the India Today Group, for conferring the award in recognition of our initiative to project the Durga Puja as the greatest moment of tourism in India. Thank you.
Are you ready for Odisha? A journey into the heart of eternal wisdom awaits you. Engage with our monuments of peace, rekindle faith, immerse in cultural expressions. Come, explore our timeless secrets. Come to Odisha, India's best kept secret.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
Our next category, Iconic Landscapes. The second runner-up here is No Kalikai Falls in Meghalaya. The first runner-up is Mayam Lake in Goa. And the winner here in this category is the daunting and formidable Statue of Unity, Gujarat. We have a few words from Mr. Vijay Rupani, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, on his winning state. Let's take a listen.
आप सभी महानुभावों को गुजरात की 6.5 करोड़ की जनता की ओर से मेरा नमस्कार। आज का दिन गुजरात के लिए एक बड़ा दिन है। इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप की ओर से स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी को आइकॉनिक लैंडस्केप का अवार्ड दिया जा रहा है। इसके लिए पूरे गुजरात वासियों की ओर से मैं आपका और आपकी जूरी का आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। देश के गौरव, गुजरात के सपूत और हमारे आदर्श सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल के सम्मान में बनाई गई इस प्रतिमा की भव्यता की चर्चा विश्व के कोने कोने तक की जा रही है। स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी का लोकप्रिय होना केवल आर्किटेक्चरल नजरिए से या इंजीनियरिंग के अनोखे नमूने के नजरिए से ही महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है, बल्कि ये भारतीयों के जज्बे को भी पूरे विश्व के समक्ष दर्शाता है। साथ ही मैं बहुत उत्साह के साथ ये भी बताना चाहता हूं कि अहमदाबाद के साबरमती नदी से सी प्लेन की उड़ान स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी तक वहां की रिवर के साथ ये व्यवस्था बनाई गई है। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि सी प्लेन से स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी तक की उड़ान भारत में पर्यटन की दिशा बदलने वाली एक उड़ान होगी। फिर से हमें बहुत खुशी है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, भारत माता की जय।
Many congratulations to the winners. Best Adventure Destinations. The second runner-up here is Zarwani Waterfall in Gujarat. The first runner-up is Patni Top in Jammu and Kashmir. And the winner here is none other than the Dudhsagar Falls and the Tambri Surla area waterfall trek in Goa. Big congratulations to the winners, to the winning states. Moving on to beaches and coastal destinations. The second runner-up in this category is the famous Marina Beach in Tamil Nadu. The first runner-up is Rishikonda in Vizag, Andhra Pradesh. And the winner here is none other than the state that's known for its amazing and gorgeous beaches, Agonda Beach, Goa. Moving on to the best state. Well, here the second runner-up is Gujarat. The first runner-up is Kerala. And the winning state is the smallest state, Goa. Many congratulations to the Chief Minister of Goa, Mr. Pramod Sawant. Here's his winning message for us.
नमस्कार। मैं सबसे पहले इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप का धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप ने पूरा सर्वे करने के बाद वन ऑफ द बेस्ट डेस्टिनेशन इन टूरिज़्म गोवा स्टेट को अवार्ड दिया है। इसलिए मैं उनका धन्यवाद देता हूं और उन्हीं के साथ और 2 अवार्ड दिए हैं। वन इन एडवेंचर टूरिज़्म, हमारे यहाँ की तांबड़ीसुल्ला विलेज और दूधसागर वाटरफॉल, इन दोनों के लिए द बेस्ट एडवेंचर टूरिज़्म का अवार्ड दिया। और द बेस्ट बीच डेस्टिनेशन में हमारे यहाँ के कानकोना तालुका में आगोंदा बीच को द बेस्ट बीच डेस्टिनेशन टूरिज़्म का अवार्ड मिला है। इन्हीं लिए मैं तीनों अवार्ड के लिए इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप का धन्यवाद देता हूँ। हम सबको मालूम है कोविड-19 के सबसे ज़्यादा इफ़ेक्ट टूरिज़्म इंडस्ट्रीज़ पे हुआ है। इसका इफ़ेक्ट गोवा के टूरिज़्म में भी हुआ है। अभी 6 महीने बाद हमने पूरी MHA की गाइडलाइन और SOP फॉलो करके टूरिज़्म इंडस्ट्री स्टार्ट की है और यहाँ फिर से एक बार टूरिज़्म इंडस्ट्री फ्लरिश करने के लिए विथ एवरी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड फॉलोइंग द SOP ऑफ MHA, we are inviting the tourists from all over the world So again, the Goa is one of the best destination for the tourism. We welcome the people from all over the world. मैं फिर एक बार इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप का जिस तरह से तीनों अवार्ड हमें मिले, इसलिए मैं इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप का धन्यवाद देता हूं और बाकी सभी लोगों का मैं स्वागत करता हूं। धन्यवाद।
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
To Orissa, India's best kept secret.
While giving out those awards surely makes you want to plan your next travel. Well, with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Prahlad Patel, Minister for Tourism and Culture, to please deliver the keynote address.
इंडिया टुडे टूरिज्म कॉन्क्लेव के इस आयोजन के लिए मैं सबसे पहले तो इंडिया टुडे को बधाई दूंगा। पूरी दुनिया कोरोना के इस परिस्थिति में जहां पर जद्दोजहद कर रही है, पर्यटन के क्षेत्र में बड़ा नुकसान हुआ है। मैं अपने देश के सभी स्टेक होल्डर्स का, उसमें होटल वाले हों, टूरिस्ट एंड ट्रेवल्स के लोग हों, गाइड्स हों, हमारी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स के जितने भी हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं वो हों, IHMs हों, मैं उन तमाम लोगों को भी इस हृदय से इसलिए बधाई दूंगा कि इस आपत्ति काल में भी उन्होंने जिस साहस का और देश के साथ खड़े होने का जो अपना मानस बनाया, वो भारत के लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। तीसरी बात मुझे लगती है कि इस बीच में हमने एक बड़ी उपलब्धि हासिल की है। पहली है कि देश के भीतर उस समय जो भी विदेशी मेहमान भारत की धरती पर थे, उनने अपने देश जाने की बजाय भारत में रहना अपने आप को सुरक्षित समझा। दूसरी उपलब्धि है कि हमारे भारत सरकार ने आदरणीय मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जो परिस्थितियां, जो विदेश में भारतीय थे, उनको लाने का जो काम किया, ये हमारी दूसरी उपलब्धि है। तीसरी उपलब्धि है कि जब दुनिया दवाइयों के लिए तरस रही थी, उस समय हम भी जरूरतमंद थे। हम तो आज भी जरूरतमंद हैं। हमारी आबादी की तुलना में हमारी जरूरतें ज्यादा हैं, हमारे पास में संसाधन कम है, लेकिन हमने 140 से ज्यादा देशों को दवाइयां दी। उसमें ताकतवर अमेरिका भी था और जरूरतमंद ब्राजील भी था। ये तीन बड़ी उपलब्धियां हैं। हमने दुनिया को योगा दिया, हमने दुनिया को कहा कि वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, सारा दुनिया हमारा परिवार है, और प्रधानमंत्री ने उसको चरितार्थ करके बताया। आज मैं देखता हूं कि हमारा देश, खास करके वो लोग जो देश के बाहर जाते थे, वो संख्या भी 2 करोड़ से ऊपर है। मैं उन सबसे आग्रह करूंगा कि हमारे दूरदर्शी प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा था कि देखो अपना देश, हम 2022 तक 15 डेस्टिनेशंस पर जाएं, खासकर उत्तर पूर्व, नॉर्थ ईस्ट जो सुंदर है लेकिन अछूता है हमारे से भी। और मैं चाहूंगा कि देश के वो तमाम लोग जो विदेश में भ्रमण करते थे, मेरी विनती होगी कि वो नॉर्थ ईस्ट जरूर जाएं। वो उन हिमालयन स्टेट्स में भी वो राज्य जाते हैं, उनको जरूर देखें। आज सबसे पहले अगर कहीं पीक्स को खोला गया और उन पीक्स पर काम करने की अगर जरूरत है, तो हम सब मिलजुल कर वहां पर काम कर सकते हैं। चाहे हमारा गोवा का इंस्टीट्यूट हो, चाहे हमारा गुलबर्ग का इंस्टीट्यूट हो, हम मिलजुल कर उसके लिए एक ऑर्गेनाइज्ड मैन पावर बनाने की तैयारी में हैं। उस पर काम शुरू हुआ है।
Are you ready for Odisha? A journey into the heart of eternal wisdom awaits you. Engage with our monuments of peace, rekindle faith, immerse in cultural expressions. Come, explore our timeless secrets. Come to Odisha, India's best kept secret.
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
ITM ने, IITTM ने हमारा टूरिस्ट फैसिलिटेटर कोर्स प्रारंभ किया है। हर जगह पर सामान्य जानकारी देने वाला गाइड वहां पर मौजूद हो। हमारे जो रीजनल गाइड्स हैं वो अपना काम करते रहेंगे, लेकिन राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर दुभाषीय और जानकारी रखने वाले लोग राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर गाइड की भूमिका में भी होंगे। ये तैयारियां करने का हमें मौका मिला है। होटल्स के रजिस्ट्रेशन हमारे पास कुल 1400 थे। कोरोना काल में हमने उसको बढ़ाकर 27,000 किए और मैं मानता हूं कि रजिस्ट्रेशन की संख्या बढ़नी चाहिए। ये डेटा आने वाले समय में हम सबको मदद करेगा। हम आने वाले अतिथियों का स्वागत सत्कार उसी उत्साह के साथ कर पाएंगे, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। लेकिन मेरी अपील होगी कि हम भारत को घूमने का ये अवसर न जाने दें। हम प्रधानमंत्री को उस आह्वान का सम्मान करें। मैं फिर से इंडिया टुडे ग्रुप का धन्यवाद करता हूं और जो राज्य आज पारितोषिक ग्रहण करेंगे उनको हृदय से बधाई देता हूं, क्योंकि मैं मानता हूं कि हमारे समुद्र तट के जो राज्य हैं, गोवा है, केरल है, ये हमारा राजस्थान है, ये प्रमुखता के साथ में पर्यटकों को लुभाते रहे हैं, खुशराहो है। लेकिन मैं मानता हूं, मेरी विनती होगी कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट और हिमालयन स्टेट्स की तरफ लोग जरूर जाएं, इस वर्ष का लाभ ले। यही विनती करते हुए मैं सभी को शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। भारत माता की जय।
मैंने जो कुछ दिन गुजरात में बिताए वो उम्र भर मेरे साथ रहेंगे। गिर का शेर आंखों से आंखें मिलाकर पूछता है, कौन हो बेटा तुम? तुम्हारे जैसे बहुत देखे मैंने। सोमनाथ के मंदिर में शिव के सामने नतमस्तक होकर मैं अपने सभी डायलॉग भूल गया। धोलावीरा और लोथल में हमारी सभ्यता के पद चिन्ह, द्वारका में कृष्ण की लीला और साबरमती में बापू की आत्मा, कहां मिलेगा इतना सब कुछ एक साथ में? कुछ दिन तो गुजारिए गुजरात में।
To Odisha, India's best kept secret.
Many thanks, Mr. Patel, for that. And with that, we conclude our very first Virtual Tourism Awards and Summit. And of course, as we mentioned, that this is the third year in a row that India Today is picking out and doing research on the best states for you to plan your travel to. We would like to thank our associate sponsors, Gujarat Tourism, Odisha Tourism, Meghalaya Tourism, Tamil Nadu Tourism and Government of Uttar Pradesh for helping us put this event together. We do hope that you plan your travel and of course, safe travels. Thank you.